in this case of Mimmo and Fernando in the Victorian Supreme Court, concerned two contracts, a dispute over two contracts. An employee had been negotiating to buy the business from the employer. The sale eventually fell over because Mr. Fernando, the employee, did not come up with the upfront payment for shares. In advance of failing to honour the agreement, he also changed the company's ASIC records without the approval of Mr. Mimmo, and did not properly account for some receipts and payments. Mr. Fernando was removed from the company premises, and he was instructed to return property and his keys, and told to go home on leave. The dispute then became, 7 months later, whether or not he'd been terminated. The court found that the contract was not actually terminated. He was ready, willing and able to perform work from July to February, and he was successful in claiming salary for that period. The court held that he'd been put on special leave, but the formalities of not actually being terminated were relevant, whether the contract was still on foot. In the end, he was ordered to pay $121,000 to the employee, as well as long service leave and annual leave for the period.
It's really an interesting case about the basics, and I think people, employers and often solicitors, there was a solicitor involved in this case, forget the basics, and the employment relationship fundamentally is one of contract, and to terminate a contract you need to actually expressly terminate a contract. So it's one of those things where you can imagine that the employer in this case would be not particularly happy with the fact that solicitors were involved and no one said to him, and by the way, let's be very, very clear that the employment has been terminated. It wasn't obviously paid during the period, which ended up being the cause of the damages, but there had been no termination of the contract, pecuniary or otherwise, and it remained on foot.
It was quite interesting because it obviously involved a dispute about the purchase of the business as well, and it seems that they've just got caught up in that side of it and actually forgotten, okay, we've put him on leave now and he's not getting paid, but without going that extra step and putting in writing that your employment is terminated. I think they got caught up in the other dispute rather than something quite simple and fundamental in issuing the termination.
Yes, I mean, it would be interesting if there's something else that arisen, he'd started working for someone else or done something that was a breach of the contract or inconsistent with the contract, but it turns out that he wasn't doing anything inconsistent with the contract because he'd been instructed to be at home and he just was at home.
Yep.
So he ends up with quite a payday.